Bald fists. Since prehistoric times, bald fists have been a signal of hostile intention. They indicate aggressiveness, anger, or controlled aggression. In business discussion, it is not possible or thankfully to hit someone, but bald fists are a way of demonstrating the strength of emotion you feel. Tapping fingers. It means irritation and ignoring someone. In the previous chapter, we mentioned how playing with objects can make effective communication more difficult. Tapping with your finger on the table or with your feet on the ground can be a similar expression of irritation, expressing disagreement with what is being said. It can also be a way of trying to ignore the other person because what they say does not interest you. When this happens, it is advisable to try and identify the reason for the irritation or lack of interest before proceeding further with the conversation by changing the subject or moving directly to the heart of the matter under discussion. Feet placed firmly on the ground. It means certainty and balance. Placing your feet firmly on the ground is as important as solid roofs. For a tree, firmly placed feet convey stability and self-confidence. You will not see this position in people who feel nervous or insecure. Relaxed and stable feet are a sign of a balance and calm. Legs or feet wide apart. It means positive emotions and self-confidence. When the legs of a sitting person or of the feet of a standing person occupy plenty of the room, this means that the person feels calm and comfortable in his place. This is a sign of positive emotion and demonstrating willingness to show positive to others. It also illustrates a high degree of self-confidence and it says, I am not afraid, I am strong, I am important. Stiff legs and feet. It means maintaining distance and withdrawal. As with stiff hands, stiff legs and feet give out negative signals. This might mean a lack of openness to the other person's story, a desire to keep a certain distance from the other, or even to withdraw from contact. And stiffness in the legs show that someone no longer has much interest in taking part in the conversation. Showing attention with your upper body. It means interest and positive emotions. When someone points his stomach and upper body in your direction without crossing his arm and legs, this is generally a good sign. It means he is paying attention and is interested in what you have to say, and it is an expression of positive emotion, which can also be an indication of self-confidence. Turning the body away and changing position. It means interest and positive emotions. When someone sits opposite you with her body angle away, particularly if it regularly changes position, this is a way to try and avoid contact or confrontation. It is a signal that your conversation partner is not interested in the subject under discussion and has no desire to talk further. It is useful if you can notice when this happens in the course of a conversation because it can help you to identify where things first went wrong. And the same body posture can also signify unease or fear. Sitting stiffly on the edge of your chair, it means insecurity, fear, and tension. Anyone who sits stiffly on the edge of their chair is clearly not doing this for their comfort for some reason. They feel unable to sit in a more relaxed manner. Perhaps they feel insecure or are experiencing fear. It is certain that they can feel in some way under pressure, otherwise they would sit more comfortably. Not moving your arms when walking. It means unease. When someone keeps his arm immobile at his side when walking, this expresses a sense of unease. This person is not comfortable in the space where he finds himself. Perhaps the location is unfamiliar, or perhaps he is uncomfortable under the gaze of new people. You often see this behavior at parties or network meetings where people feel ill at ease and walk around stiffly. Relaxing movements when walking. It means stress and letting off steam. You sometimes see people who seem to move their head a lot when walking, subtly tensing and relaxing their shoulders. This is a way to relieve the stress they obviously are feeling. You can often see this behavior in people who have just taken a break from the stress of the negotiating table. Number 6. Interpreting facial expression. In the chapter, you will discover how to interpret the most common facial expression information you can gather from someone's eyes and how to tell a real smile from a false one. The face is our most important source of information about other people because it is the part of the body that we see most easily, look at the most frequently, and with which we communicate most readily. In prehistoric times, the ability to read anger in someone else's face could mean the difference between life and death. Viewed from the perspective of evolution, it is interesting to note that the list of the negative facial expression is much longer than the list of positive ones. In this chapter, we will also discuss more expressions that have a negative connotation. This knowledge will help us to react appropriately to a negative scenario based on a quick glance at the face of our conversation partner. We should know what to do to try and restore good contact if a person's facial expression show pleasure. This is an unnecessary since the lines of communications between you remain open. A newborn baby can already distinguish between the shape of a human face and the shape of the other things around it. Research conducted on 1-day-old babies revealed that they can identify the difference between various micro-expressions, even though they are not yet able to make these expressions themselves. The face is the most important external stimulus in our life from the moment we are born. In this chapter, you will discover what information the face can give and what meanings this information can have. In the following chapter, we will examine a special category of a facial expression known as micro-expression, which reflect the 7 basic emotions like anger, dislike, fear, surprise, pleasure, sorrow, and contempt. Eye contact. Eye contact plays a significant role in every conversation you have and is the basis for a good understanding between conversation partner. It also via the eyes that first contact with others is made. It is important to realize that eye contact is often accompanied by other elements of body language, which also play an important part in your interaction because they give additional or different meaning to the eye contact. Staring. It is not a good idea to stare at someone for any length of time because this will make them feel uncomfortable. When a person stands in front of you with tense shoulders and an intense look in her eyes, this usually means only one thing: a desire for confrontation. A stubborn state of this kind expresses dread. If we look critically at someone or something by fixing our gaze on a single point, this is often a precursor of a condemnation or a negative decision. Staring takes away the privacy of others. If a man stares at a woman from a distance, this means that he is attracted to her. However, the women can find this uncomfortable if the attraction is not mutual. In this instance, staring will reduce a chance that the silent admirer will ever be able to start a conversation with the object of his affection. And when woman is attracted to a man, she is more inclined to use a series of discreet looks rather than a single long stare. If a woman is talking with 2 men and she is more attracted to one of them, she will look at him more frequently during the conversation. Loving couples often stare into each other's eyes because they experience pleasure from being the subject of their partner's romantic gaze. Avoiding eye contact, it means uncertainty, shyness, or something to hide. If someone seldom looks at their conversation partner, you might conclude that this person is not genuine or has something to hide. Avoiding eye contact means that the person does not feel comfortable in the wider contact process. If this happens, try to find out why. Of course, this behavior can have a more significant meaning if it suddenly happens halfway through the conversation when the person has previously had no problem in maintaining eye contact. In these circumstances, using our 5 basic interpretive principles from the chapter 1 is especially important. The avoidance of eye contact can also be the result of shyness or insecurity. In some cultures, for example in the Middle East, eye contact between men and women is avoided in business conversations, but is acceptable in other circumstances. If as a woman you are talking to a businessman dressed in a suit, you may be curious or even put off by this behavior until he mentioned that has an Arab background. It is important to be curious about the origin of the reason for certain types of behavior before jumping to conclusion. The length of eye contact. Yeah, eye contact for 60 to 80% of the time creates confidence. In a business context in our Western culture, it is advisable to maintain eye contact with your conversation partner between 60 and 80% of the time, depending on the relevant power position you both hold. If there are several participants in the conversation, the one who is looked at the most will be the most important. During negotiation, it is the person that most people will look to before speaking or making a proposal, and this deliberate searching for eye contact is a request for non-verbal approval. Almost like asking for permission to speak. If you watch out for this behavior, you can continue to identify the person you most need to convince in order to bring your negotiation to a successful conclusion. If someone does not look at his conversation partner very often, for example, if he seems more interested in his computer or notes, this reduces the intensity of the contact and makes a poor impression on the person who feels ignored. Good timing and the right length of the eye contact appropriate to your conversation partner and your relationship will help you to come across as reliable and trustworthy so that both you and your intention will be viewed positively. Looking someone straight in the eyes is generally regarded as a sign of genuineness and honesty. However, some good liars make use of this assumption and deliberately look into the eyes of their victims to assess to what extent their lies are being believed. Fortunately, other incongruencies between their body language and their words often betray them. Providing you know that what you look for, you need to keep a sharp eye on some liars. The pupils. Eckhart Hess, professor of psychology at the University of Chicago, pioneered research into the working of the pupil and discovered that the size of the pupil changes if a person is more or less stimulated. In broad terms, our pupils get bigger when we look at something we associate with a positive emotion. Has noticed that in heterosexual men and women, the pupils got bigger when they were shown naked photographs of the opposite sex. In another study, he concluded that the pupils of women are widest when they are shown images of babies, whereas with the men on photograph of attractive women have the biggest effect. The pupils also increased in the size when they are shown generally pleasant images, as opposed to unpleasant images of politicians, war, and etc. Playing pleasant and unpleasant music has also had the same effect. Last but not least, has concluded that the size of the pupil is closely related to the brain activity associated with the solving of the problems, and the pupils reach their maximum size when the problem is solved. Larger pupils. It means interest, positive emotion, and possibly fear. When you look at the person you like, your pupils will probably become larger. The same is true when you are offered something advantageous. Our pupils react by increasing in size and respond to positive emotional experiences such as interest, love, and sympathy. Intensive thought can also have the same effect because larger pupils are associated with positive expressions, with positive experiences. People with such pupils often seem more attractive and more sympathetic. Yeah, it is for this reason that the pupils of women in advertising photograph of perfume or cosmetic are nowadays digitally reworked. However, there is no exceptions to the above of which you need to be aware, and great fear can also result in a very large pupils. In general, pupils can increase or decrease in size by 40%. Smaller pupils, it means lack of interest, negative emotions. The pupils get smaller when our interest is not genuine. Our pupil reduces in size when we are faced with an admirer who we do not really like. Of course, it's only possible to make such an assessment when the amount and fall of light remains the same. And similarly, you need to have a good idea of the person's normal pupil size before you can make a valid comparison. Pupils in practice. Following has research into the changing size of pupils, a number of the other studies were conducted, most of which reached broadly the same conclusion. We have conducted our own tests into the subject. Using photographs that call up different emotion and filming the reaction people face with a powerful zoom lens, our result concurred with the majority of the previous studies, namely that the pupil changed in size by about 10% in response to relatively strong positive or negative stimuli. However, the quantification of 10% is the crucial element that was lacking in many of the existing research results. It is crucial because a change of 10% equates to a change of less than a half millimeter. In other words, at normal conversation distance, it is impossible to observe the change in the pupil size with the naked eye, even in the presence of powerful stimuli. Consequently, in the context of business negotiation, you are likely to learn more about your conversation partner from her other body language than by trying to stare deeply into her eyes to see what her pupils are doing. Eyes and eyelids. The eyes and eyelids play a leading role in the communication process. Eye movements offer plenty of information for useful analysis. For example, in the traditional dance of Kerala in southern India, the performers tell the story using the chest eye and hand movement. Similarly, the eye are an important part of Arabian, Persian, and Turkish culture. Here are some interpretations that might help you in your own context. Larger eyes, it means amazement. By raising your upper eyelid more than normal, you can communicate amazement or surprise. If the movement is more exaggerated and held for longer, it can express fear. In both cases, it is often associated with similar raising of the eyebrows. So for surprise, the eyebrows are tense, while for fear, the tension is more obviously in the forehead. Quick exchange of looks, exchange of information. A quick exchange of look between two people often perform simultaneously and unnoticed by others, can involve a secret exchange of information or opinion about subject under discussion. Angry look. An angry look means displeasure, superiority, and contempt. An angry look that is clearly targeted at someone with the eyes narrowed and the eyebrow turned down is an expression of displeasure, superiority, or contempt. The context of this look is important because it can also occur when a person is concentrating hard or cannot see something properly. In neither of these cases, the person necessarily angry. Winking, attracting attention and warning. If someone gives you a wink and keeps on looking at you, this is usually intended as a way to attract your attention, and generally the person wishes to confirm something positive or warn you of something negative. Confirmatory blinking. It means confirmation and agreement. Briefly closing your eyes and then quickly opening them again can indicate confirmation or approval to the person you are looking at. It is a variant of nodding your head. Sideways glance. A sideways glance with your eyes, with your head also slightly turned sideways, can be used to signal disbelief, reluctance, distrust, or disapproval. Confusingly, it can also signify interest, depending on the other body language that accompanies the glance. When the eyebrows are slightly raised during the sideways glance, or if it is accompanied by a slight smile, it is a sign of interest. If the eyebrow and the corner of the mouth are turned down, it is hostile and negative in intent. It means disbelief, reluctance, distrust, or disapproval. Narrowing the eyes. It means request for more information, concentration, and anger. Narrowing the eyes can mean several things. It can be a request for more information, not for knowledge in general, but for more details about the subject already known. It can also be a sign of deep concentration on the specific thing and When they narrow the focus of the attention like the zoom lens on a camera, if your conversation partner narrows her eyes, you can expect one of the two possibilities. It can either be a precursor to asking her specific questions about something she has not understood, or else it can signify that she is thinking hard about something that has just been said or she is about to say. In this later instance, you do not need to react. When the person relaxes her eyes again, she has finished her thinking and is ready to continue the conversation. Do not let yourself be misled by people who assume this expression frequently during negotiation or interviews. It may mean that they want more detail about your proposal so that they can critically assess it. But it can also just be something they do for habits in this kind of discussion, and this may give you the impression that they are savory when this is not really what they intend. The same eye movement can also be a micro expression of anger when it lasts for less than half a second. So how do you know which of these interpretations is the right one? By using our 5 basic principles. Blinking your eyes. It means fast blinking is necessary after intensive thinking. Blinking serves the important function of keeping the eyes sufficiently moist and clean. When we are relaxed, we blink between 6 and 8 times each minute, closing our eyelid each time for about a tenth of a second. Research by the neuroscientist Daniel Smilek at the University of Waterloo has shown that people who display less attention or whose thoughts are elsewhere blink more. In this way, they are able to isolate themselves more from what is happening around them. And the traditional assertion that liars blink more is simply not true. Dr. Sharon Leaf of Portsmouth University has proven that liars actually blink less when they are lying because the brain is working more intensely to fabricate the lie. As a consequence, after the lie has been told and their level of intention has been lowered, they need to compensate for this reduced blinking by blinking more than one would normally expect. It is a myth that liars blink more when they are lying. Averting your gaze. It means hiding something, like needing distance. When you are talking about something neutral or pleasant on the face of your conversation partner betrays that something is wrong. He may as well suddenly look away in order to break eye contact so that he can more clearly focus on his own inner thoughts. Perhaps this person has something to hide and that the conversation has unexpectedly brought to mind so that he needs a brief period to restructure his thoughts. To accomplish this, he temporarily breaks up the communication by averting his gaze. It is important to note how long this interruption lasts. If he establishes eye contact after only a brief pause, this means that he is once again concentrating on what you are saying. If the interruption lasts for a long period, there is a risk that your communication will become purely one-dimensional because the person for whom it is intended is no longer listening. We tend to avert our gaze when we want to avoid giving an opinion or escape from doing something that does not appeal to us. The necessary information is still communicated in our direction, so we try to ignore it by looking away, and in this way we hope to sidestep the confrontation. When faced with a situation of this kind, it is important to note what other body language is being displayed. Only then will you know how best to react. Explaining the myth around eye movements. You have probably heard that you can tell whether someone is lying by watching closely the direction of their eye movement. This myth is often associated with NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming, developed by Grinder and Bender. However, the so-called developers of NLP never included it in their original research findings, and there have been an insufficient number of the other studies to prove that you can detect when someone is lying simply by following their eye movement. And conversely, it has not been possible to prove the opposite hypothesis. The eye movement theory was originally only referred to as an NLP model. The myth that you can detect liars by following their eyes was spread primarily by the non-scientific media. Although this misinterpretation of the original research finding has spread like wildfire, the truth is that there is insufficient evidence to prove or disprove the theory. Raising your eyebrows. It means surprise and greeting. Before we discuss the different possible interpretation for raised eyebrows, it is important to again emphasize the importance of applying our five basic principles when trying to assess what this facial movement really means. Depending on the context and the timing, it can be a sign of surprise when someone hears something unusual or even incredible. If the expression lasts for longer, this may be deliberate because the person wishes to express amazement rather than just surprise. In a different context, raised eyebrows can signal admiration. For example, when your colleague has just bought a brand new sport car, it is a complimenting factor that many people use their eyebrows to emphasize words in general conversation, and this means that you need to first celebrate this normal use of the eyebrow in a number of ordinary and unimportant situations so that you can correctly assess when the use of the becomes exceptional in other circumstances when perhaps there is more at stake. The short raising of the eyebrows when still at a distance form of the other person has been used since prehistoric times as a greeting or a sign that you have noticed their approach. It serves to momentarily attract the attention of the other party. It can also be useful to male-female relation when it can sometimes have a sexual undertone. If you raise your eyebrows toward a person you do not know, this might make them think that you're not in fact unknown to them, which will put them more at ease. It is also an expression that you can use in much the same way at network meeting to help you make eye contact with a new people, particularly if it is accompanied by a smile. In the 1970s, Professor Mark Knapp concluded that this gesture was a good way to get a conversation started. Raising one eyebrow. Raising a single eyebrow is an expression of disbelief. The eyebrow that is not raised is often lowered slightly. This makes the facial movement a combination of both surprise and a negative assessment because it is impossible to raise and lower both your eyebrows simultaneously. When people encounter a surprise that they view with disbelief, one eyebrow is raised while the other is lowered or remain tense in position. If someone transmits the signal while you are explaining something, it's probably wise either to adjust your line of argument or give additional clarification in support of those argument, or simply ask the other person why they look so surprised. If you fail to do this, there is a possibility that the negative assessment of your conversation partner will boomerang against you later in a discussion or negotiation. As always, however, remember to apply the five basic principles of interpretation when formulating your conclusion. It may be that your conversation partner regularly makes this expression for no particular reason. The person using the expression gives the impression of being strong and critical, whereas that might not be the case. Ignoring a raised eyebrow can come back to hit you like a boomerang. Lowering your eyebrows. It means dissatisfaction, anger, or unpleasant surprise. Lowering both eyebrows so that vertical lines appear above your nose can be an expression of dissatisfaction, anger, or unpleasant surprise. If the movement is short, it may just significant experiencing of emotion. If it is held for any length of time, this is more likely to an attempt to signify displeasure, and some people use the expression to deliberately to appear stricter than they actually are. However, research by Forbes and Jackson in 1980 showed that the job candidates who lowered their eyebrow were less likely to be selected than candidates who smiled. Irrespective of their competencies and other factors. So be careful if you are someone who frequently pulls down your eyebrows for no reason. You could be giving the wrong impression. Pursed lips. It means lack of acceptance, not wanting to say something. If the lips are pressed together for a half second or shorter, in some circumstances this can be a micro-expression of controlled anger or sorrow. However, pursed lips can also convey other signals such as a lack of acceptance. Disapproval can be a reaction to a proposal or to the behavior of someone who does not match up to the expectation of the person doing this pursing. It is an expression which shows the other person that they should be ready for resistance or criticism. Alternatively, pursed lips can also mean that the person concerned
does not intend to share information they know. In this case, the expression underlies their determination not to speak, so you know that it will not be easy to get this information out of them verbally, fortunately. A good understanding of their other body language will help you to learn what you need to know in other ways. This is the essence of our playing conversation technique, which we will discuss in chapter 8. A real or false smile. It means, if a really genuine smile involves the simultaneous contraction of two groups of muscles, the muscle around the eye and the muscles above the mouth. We learn to recognize the signal that when we are babies. When babies see their smiling mother, they make a connection between the smile and the pleasing solution to the problem of feeling hungry because of the positive connotation associated with the signal. It is generally used as an element in the ceremony of meeting someone new. The type of smile a person uses can give you a glimpse at what they are feeling when they meet you. If, for example, the smile is not real, so that the teeth are exposed between top lips, this person is probably trying to protect superiority. Look at me, I have got teeth, I can bite. The arsenal of different smiles is immense, ranging from smiles that signal disapproval to happiness to enmity to unpleasant surprise. The difference between genuine and false happiness can be easily identified by looking at the eyes. Yeah, the psychologist Dukin recorded that the experiencing of real happiness is accompanied by the contraction of the orbicularis oculi muscles. This means that the piece of skin between the eye and the outer edge of the eyebrow is stretched and pulled slightly downward, while the eyebrow itself is often slightly lowered. As a result, you will usually see more wrinkle around the eye when this happens. However, the fact that you see wrinkle around the eyes is not by itself sufficient to conclude that the smile is genuine. Some people already have this wrinkle, and the simple contraction of the zygomatic major muscle can make them appear without the need to contract the orbicularis oculi muscle. Since 1862, numerous studies have confirmed the hypothesis of the genuine Duncan smile, as well as establishing that the contraction of the orbicularis oculi muscle occurs in conjunction with higher alpha activity in the left prefrontal cortex. However, since 2009, a number of research projects have cast doubt on this generally accepted wisdom. For example, one study showed that 70% of the people are capable of faking a doesn't smile when they are shown a photograph of a genuine smile. Unfortunately, a study to analyze the faking of a smile in negative situations has not yet been conducted. Until more conclusive research has shown carried out, we remain of the opinion that you can often recognize a fraudulent smile by the way the eyes are contracted. If the orbicularis oculi muscle is consciously and deliberately contracted without the person experiencing genuine pleasure, you should be able to notice that the smile seems denser, as if it is paused. You will probably also see that the orbicularis oculi pars orbitalis muscle contact, but that the orbicularis oculi pars palpebralis muscles are more relaxed. Other elements can also help you to spot the difference. Research has shown that a false smile is more exaggerated on one side of the face with the genuine smile. Both halves of the brain send out the same signal. With a fake smile, the part of the brain that is specialized in the facial expression located in the right half sends more conscious signal to the left side of the body, and this means that fake emotions are more likely to display themselves on this left side. When emotions are experienced spontaneously and unconsciously, both halves of the brain work symmetrically. And once again, you need to apply the 5 basic interpretive principles, and you also need a reliable basis for comparison between how a person looks when they are smiling genuinely or just pretending. Some people normally smile asymmetrically. Research into eyes and their power of persuasion. The eyes play an important role in interpersonal relations because they indicate a willingness to communicate. In 1978, Argyll and Cook emphasized that looking at someone always conveys a meaning because it showed that the two people concerned are engaged with each other. The eyes and their movement not only signal that both people have noticed each other but also reflect degrees of mutual interest. According to Harper, Wins and Matarizu, the eyes also have an important function relating to the changes in the distribution of relative power within relationship. A person who wishes to be convincing or appear reliable needs to maintain eye contact both when they are speaking and listening. Their 1978 study revealed that it is important for a person not to have a searching look if she want to maintain her credibility. This means that she should not lower her eyes or avoid eye contact too frequently. Likewise, she must not blink or move her eyelids too much. In his extensive 1986 study into eye behavior, Glencoe documented the significant impact that eye contact can have in helping to establish credibility, and therefore in convincing others. He emphasized that numerous empirical studies support this stereotypical belief that we are more inclined to trust people who look us straight in the eye, whereas people who avoid eye contact are more easily labeled as liars. This explains, for example, why witnesses in court who avoid looking at the cross-examining lawyers are less likely to be believed. It also explains why people in airport who avoid eye contact with security personnel are more rather than less likely to be stopped and searched. And when someone looks into your eyes as she talks to us, it gives the impression of honesty. If she avoids eye contact, her message seems less congruent and we may start to doubt her sincerity. A similar conclusion was reached by Burgon, Manufasov, Mineo, and Hale in 1985. They noted that the avoidance of eye contact during an interview made candidates seem less credible, thereby emphasizing that the negative connotation associated with averted eyes and the possible painful consequences this might involve are interpreted as a negative form of nonverbal behavior. The behavior of these eyes plays a key role in establishment, maintenance, and termination of interpersonal relations. In 1989, Malandro, Barker, and Gout concluded that the type of eye contact can be a signal of the kind of interaction that is possible between the two people, or a predictor of how this interaction will develop. Eye contact displays the interest you have in another person and give the person the opportunity to gather information about you and your intention. In particular, eye contact is indicative of the likely level of intimacy of a contact, much more than many other gesture and nonverbal signals. According to the Web Inc. in 1986, reciprocated eye contact expresses much more than the language of the other part of the body and indicates a frank openness between two people in general. It is possible to say that the longer the eye contact is maintained, the more intense the level of intimacy becomes. Returning someone else's eye contact in the same way plays a key role in the majority of human interaction and is part of the process that is necessary for strengthening a mutual feeling of participation and therefore intimacy. Argyll was similarly convinced of the primary importance of the information communicated to others by the eyes. His research, published in 1988, concluded that this information is particularly valuable for deciphering and interpreting incongruent messages. This was the dominant role of eye contact in recognizing incongruence, with further underlined in 1989 by Burgon, Baller, and Woodball, who spoke of the priority of the eye contact above other nonverbal signals, while conceding that his priority was apparent in some circumstances and not others. All the above research confirmed the world-famous finding originally published in 1981 by Mehrabian, who claimed that just 7% of our communication is expressed in words, while some 55% is conveyed by our body language, although the precise figure were later modified by Mehrabian and other scientists. It remains indisputable that the majority of our messages to others are transmitted by body language, and this was in keeping with the result of the test conducted in 1979 by the De Paulo and Rosenthal, when participants chose information received via visual channel as being more reliable than all other channels for assessing the truth of a message. In other words, if you need to choose between a person's words and their body language, always opt for the body language if you want to know the truth. Summary. Staring, it means desire for confrontation and sexual interest. Avoiding eye contact, it means uncertainty, shyness, or something to hide. The length of eye contact, it means eye contact for 60 to 80% of the time creates confidence. Larger pupils, interest, positive emotion. Smaller pupils, lack of interest and negative emotion. Large eyes, amazement. Quick exchange of glance, it means exchange of information. Angry look, displeasure, superiority, and contempt. Winking, attracting attention and warning. Confirmatory blinking, confirmation and agreeing. Sideways glance, disbelief, reluctance, distrust, and disapproval. Narrowing the eyes, request for more information, concentration and anger. Blinking with your eyes, fast blinking necessary after intensive thinking. Avertive your gaze, hiding something, needing distance. False smile, only with the mouth. Real smile, contractions of orbicularis oculi, like eye corners stretched and eyebrows lowered. 7. Micro-expressions, the depth giveaways. In this chapter, you will discover the most reliable indicator of what people are feeling and how involuntary muscle movement reveal emotion like happiness, disapproval, and even a contempt. Micro-expression are a special category of facial expression which have been the subject of considerable and specific scientific research during the past 50 years. We define microexpression as subtle muscular movement in the face with a duration of half a second or less. Microexpression often occur unconsciously and reflect emotion that we are feeling at that particular moment. If you compare the face to a screen, the brain is the projector of our emotion, which causes our facial muscles to contract for just a brief instant. There are 7 basic emotions that are shown in the same way in the face in all cultures. Research conducted among blind people has proven that the microexpressions are not culturally learned, but are a biological phenomenon with which each of us is equipped with from birth. They are the physical reaction to the way our brain translates emotional impulses. And what's more, most people are unable to control this unconscious contraction of the muscles because they are directly generated by the emotion. Microexpression display of most of the basic emotion. Robert Plutchik was the first to develop the theory of the 8 basic emotions like sorrow, dislike, anger, fear, anticipation, pleasure, acceptance, and surprise. He even developed a specific graphic in color for each emotion to reflect the fact that they could be combined to create new emotion. For example, fear plus surprise equal to alarm or pleasure plus fear, it means guilt. Since it was not possible to observe anticipation and acceptance as a universal code visibly in the face, the only positive emotion that remained in Plutchik's theory was pleasure, later more commonly referred to as happiness. This term covers a whole family of positive emotion, including acceptance, anticipation, approval, pleasure, and joy. Today, microexpressions are grouped into 7 basic and universal emotions like anger, dislike, fear, surprise, happiness, sadness, and contempt. What we now refer to a microexpression were the first identified in the 19th century by Duncan de Boulogne, a famous French neurologist. He combined his huge knowledge of facial anatomy with his passion for photography and his expertise in the use of electricity to stimulate individual muscle in the face. He recorded his conclusion in his book, The Mechanism of Human Facial Expression, published in 1862. The second person to write about microexpression was Charles Darwin in The Expression of the Emotion in Man and Animals, published in 1872. Darwin noted that the universe nature of facial expression are listed the muscles that were used to generate them. In the finding of their 1966 study, Haggard and Isaac reported how they had been able to observe micro-movement facial expression when examining film of psychotherapy session, initially searching for signals of nonverbal communication between therapists and their patient. Ekman Ferguson conducted numerous investigations into facial expression and were eventually able to confirm that 7 basic emotions are displayed facially in the same manner in 21 different cultures. In this chapter, we look at the most common variation of 3 of the 7 basic emotions which can occur regularly in day-to-day conversation. If you have already had micro-expressions training, you will notice that our approach to identifying and interpreting short muscular movement in the face is designed to make things as simple as possible. This is because we refer to all facial expression of half a second or less by generic terms micro-expressions, even though from a purely scientific perspective, some of them can better be described as a partial expression, subtle expression, or mass expression. While there are slight differences between the different types of partial, subtle, and mass expression, our focus in this book is on applying accepted scientific conclusion to daily practice. Neutral face. It is important to be able to identify when someone is wearing a neutral face because this gives you a basis for comparing or noticing the difference when the facial micro-expression activated by emotion kick in. Sometimes, wearing a neutral face may express the fact that the person is experiencing no emotion at the particular moment or has no opinion about what she's hearing. In such situation, it can be useful to check if she is really paying attention to what you are saying. It is always possible that she is simply not listening to you or has not properly heard what you say. You have probably experienced when someone deliberately puts on a poker face. Most of us are capable of producing our own variant of this when necessary. For this reason, it is important to be able to make a distinction between a neutral face and a poker face. Neutral face will appear more relaxed and more spontaneous than a poker face. With a poker face, you often get the impression that the person concerned is wearing a mask. The muscles in the face are more tense, and you can notice that the person is deliberately trying to suppress reaction to what is happening around him. He will not answer questions spontaneously, but will first take time to think about how he wants to respond, while at the same time attempting to not to react with his face. This is also the reason why people with something to hide often wear dark sunglasses, so that people cannot see part of their face and, in particular, their
Happiness. Corners of the mouth turn up. It means both corners of the mouth turn up indicate happiness. You can read happiness in someone's face when both corners of their mouth are turned up symmetrically to the same level. If you can recognize it, this micro-expression is extremely useful in everyday life. For example, if I ask my partner what she wants to do tonight, shall we meet up with friends, stay at home, or go to the movies? And if I see both corners of her mouth turn up when I mention friends, then I know that she has already made her nonverbal choice. Compare this with a real wholehearted smile of joy. This is not a micro-expression, but we show it as an example so that you can see the difference between a micro-expression that lasts for half a second or less and a micro-expression that lasts for significantly longer. The photo is also useful to see the difference between a real and a false smile. When you see the orbicularis oculi contract, you know that you're looking at a real smile, a so-called Tunkin smile. The contraction of the orbicularis oculi muscle makes the area of skin between the eyes and the outer edge of eyebrows stretch and lower slightly, often accompanied by the slight narrowing of the eyebrows as well. And these two movements are a reliable indicator that someone is experiencing pleasure in the left prefrontal cortex of their brain, so that the happiness they are experiencing is genuine. Happiness. In behavioral science, the term happiness is used as a generic description for a whole family of positive emotions, including acceptance, anticipation, approval, pleasure, confirmation, and excitement. Happiness is the most attractive emotion. We like to be surrounded by loving people, and we are prepared to make those around us feel happy and comfortable in return. We often smile or laugh to show that we agree with someone or that we like them, or in the hope that they will like us. The micro-expression of happiness is a crucial signal in business contact, especially if you want to know
whether your conversation partner agrees with your proposal or not. And consequently, it is important to know how you can recognize this emotional signal. And one implication is the fact that it is easy to mistake the micro expression for happiness with the micro expression for the contempt. Both are very similar, with the exception that the expression for contempt is asymmetrical, while the expression for happiness is symmetrical. When people experience pleasure, both of the corners of the mouth are turned up. When they experience contempt, only one corner is turned up. Contempt has a totally different meaning from happiness. It is an expression of superiority. If someone displays contempt during a business meeting, it almost certainly means that she does not appreciate your proposal or that she thinks she knows better than you do. Contempt can be shown immediately before or immediately after a smile, and this is designed to mask the expression of contempt, but it can still be seen for just a fraction of a second within a smile. It is essential to be able to distinguish between these two different facial movements. If you confuse them, your negotiations are unlikely to lead to a successful conclusion. Contempt. In behavioral science, the term contempt is used as a generic description for the whole family of a negative emotion, including superiority, sarcasm, I know better, and dominance. Contempt is the only one of the seven basic emotions that is clearly symmetrical in its expression. It looks as though you are smiling to yourself because only one of the two corners of your mouth is raised. In reality, it's not a smile, but rather a sign that you feel superior to others around you, and it is an expression that is used after someone has had a chance to compare their knowledge and experience with what is of someone else and has reached the conclusion that theirs are better. People who are inclined to show contempt will be more ready to assess and judge others and express negative thought about them. If you contempt on your conversation partner face during a business meeting, you will be well advised to change your line of argument since you have obviously not been able to convince him so far. For example, you can offer more examples to support your case or re-emphasize your own level of expertise and experience or ask questions that will make clear the reason for his resistance. If someone shows you this contemptuous expression before you have even said a word, you can expect the word conversation to be a difficult one in certain circumstances. The same expression can also be indication of pride. And yeah, contempt is one corner of the mouth turned up. You can read contempt on someone's face when they feel superior or when they regard someone else as inferior. This micro expression is easy to recognize because it is the only one of the seven basic emotions that is displayed asymmetrically. Only one of the two corners of the mouth is turned up. Contempt during a smile. You can also recognize contempt during a smile when one of the corners of the mouth is raised more quickly or further than the other, or comes down again more slowly. Dislike. In behavioral science, the term dislike is used as a generic description for a whole family of negative emotion, ranging from modest disapproval to outrage, rejection, and disgust. This is the expression you make when you open the fridge door and discover that your milk has gone sour. There will be wrinkles visible in your face because you will have turned up your upper lip, and this is an automatic reaction to a bad smell and represents an attempt to close over the nasal passages as far as possible. During the evolutionary process, the facial expression helped people of the same tribe to protect each other from the harmful consequences of the rotten food. And nowadays, it has become an expression to show that we don't like someone or do not agree with what we are hearing. If your customer shows this sign of disapproval during a renegotiation, this will mean that your proposal was not as good as you thought. By being able to notice this expression quickly, you will have the opportunity to steer the conversation in a different direction before it is too late. Perhaps by asking exploratory questions or putting forward new argument in some circumstances, it can also save you time. If you can see early in the conversation that the customer has no interest at all in what you are trying to say. The micro-expressions of millionaires. Many people regard millionaires as cold people who seldom show their emotions. It is certainly true that millionaires are generally knowledgeable and self-confident, so that their body language displays the fact that they are not to be trifled with, and even so, studies have revealed that in most cases millionaires are highly empathic. For example, There was a video of Patrick's live conversation with multi-millionaire Ronald Duclet on RTBF, the French language TV station in Belgium. When we analyze what Ducatelet does with his face while he is talking, we see that his facial expressions support his word in a sympathetic manner. This is a clear congruence, and it is obvious that this is not just a poker face. Yeah, dislike, it means wrinkles around the nose. Dislike is easy to identify from the wrinkles it creates around the nose, and this wrinkle appear because the upper lip is tense and slightly raised up. The lower lip can also be slightly raised. Dislike, upper lip turned up. A clear sign of dislike is the turning up of the upper lip. In this variation of the expression, the teeth are also visible. Note that wrinkles around the nose are still visible. Wrinkles around the nose nearly always signify dislikes. Expressions of fear, anger, sadness, and surprise. So far in this book, we have not discussed in detail the micro-expression of fear, anger, sadness, and surprise. Each of these expressions have many variations than the three other emotions we have to examine below. You can find a single and commonly occurring expression for each emotion to serve as an example. Fear, the lips stretch horizontally sideways. Anger, the eyes narrowed and the eyebrows pulled down. Sadness, the inner edges of the eyebrows raised. Surprise, the eyebrows tense and raised together with the upper eyelids. 8. Decision-making body language. In this chapter, you will discover how to predict someone's decision even before they speak, and how to recognize a lie, and how to get your questions answered without even asking them. In this chapter, we will focus on decisive body language that can be crucial to your negotiating success. When I, Cassia, was 12 years old, I started a company my stepfather on my mini business trip and was present at many business launches. He was the owner of the large construction company specialized in office building, and together we visited many different Western and Arab lands. Observing him over the course of many meetings, I noticed how my stepfather's decisions were revealed on his face long before he spoke them. One time, I watched him negotiate a price for an expensive silver vase. When the price he offered was good, he showed contempt with one lip up. When the fee was too low, he showed disgust with a wrinkle around the nose, and then anger with practice. I often able to predict the outcome of the meeting before either party had made it clear. In this chapter, you will also find a description of our playing conversation technique, which will help you to steer conversation in such a way that you will receive all the information you want to know without ever saying a word about it. In short, this chapter contains a vital guidance that can be used beneficially in many different kinds of business situations, including sales, recruitment, and negotiation. Rubbing the chin. It means thinking, assessing. Look up or down generally negative, look to one side generally positive. If someone submits his chin, this means that he is usually assessing a situation. This gesture also indicates that the person is getting ready to make a decision. If the chin rubbing stopped and the decision has often already been made. Consequently, it is important to take the right action while the rubbing is still in progress. If the person turns his head or glances to one side during the messaging process, this generally means that he is positive toward what has been proposed. If he looks upward or downward, this generally means that his reaction will be unfavorable. And in this later case, you should say something or ask a question before he actually speaks. His final judgment. By breaking his train of negative thought in this way, you might still have the opportunity to persuade him in a more positive direction. Eyelids lowered with the index finger on lips. It means do not disturb, a decision is being made. Another gesture that can precede the making of the decision is lowering of the upper eyelid and the placing of the index finger against the lip. This indicates that the person is thinking about the particular subject and does not want to be disturbed. Whether or not you decide to disturb her anyway will depend on whether you think her thoughts are positive or negative. If this position was preceded by largely negative body language, you have nothing to lose by interrupting with a question or a new and more convincing line of argument. Glasses in the mouth. It means a decision is being made. You have probably noticed that some people who wear glasses have a tendency to take them off at a crucial movement and put part of them, usually one of the arms, in their mouth. Others may simply wave their glasses about with a contracted look on their face. In both cases, the person concerned is getting ready to make a decision. As with a gesture already discussed, your reaction will best be determined by the general impression conveyed by the person's body language, both during the preceding minute and during the moment of reflection. Is it positive or negative? Putting objects in the mouth. It means uncertainty, more details needed. We have already seen that putting object in your mouth is a sign of uncertainty. If you notice this action while someone is making a decision, it is a nonverbal signal that the person needs more specific argument or detail before they can make a well-founded decision. If you fail to answer these nonverbal questions, there is a chance that their uncertainty will gain the upper hand so that the result will be negative. Hence, in a pyramid, it means someone who is certain on his opinion. We saw that joining your finger in the form of a pyramid can be seen as a sign of self-confidence and dominance. Within the context of decision-making, it shows that the person who is convinced of the wisdom of his own opinion, if the decision is likely to be favorable to you, will depend on the other nonverbal signal you have picked up in the course of the conversation. If his body language was positive immediately before assuming the pyramid position, this is the ideal moment to sign a contract or make a definite agreement. If his preceding body language was negative, your chances are slim. All you can do is interrupt his train of thought and try to move the conversation in a different direction. Perhaps before returning to the original subject at a later stage with a more convincing argument, if the person with the pyramid hands also leans his head back, this signifies a superior and dominant attitude. It will be very difficult to persuade this power in your favor unless the initiative comes from his side. This position makes a positive conversation difficult since it indicates he is not really listening to what you say. Hands behind the head. It means interest ready for a confrontation. As with the pyramid hand, the person who puts her hand behind her head is displaying self-confidence and dominance. It is important to be aware of the timing of his gesture and the other signal that accompany it. Interpreting the different possible meaning of gesture as discussed in chapter 3 will help you to decide your best strategy. Leaning the body forward. It means interest ready for a confrontation. If your conversation partner leans her upper body up forward, this is generally a good sign. It probably means that she agrees with you, is interested in your proposal, and is open for further collaboration. However, if the position is combined with other negative body language, it can mean that she is preparing for confrontation. Crossed arms and head leaned back. It means refusal and denial. If your negotiating partner answers your proposal with a close body position with folded arms and his head leaned back, his answer is certain to be no. In these circumstances, it is better not to proceed since this will simply strengthen his decision, and all you can do is to try this different angle of approach in this hope that this may help him to reach a different conclusion later on. Nodding with crossed arm and a smile. It means hidden enthusiasm or sarcasm. This position needs to be interpreted with care depending on the moment and the context of its use. When not mean sarcastically, nodding the head with a smile is a good sign. The addition of the crossed arm can mean that the person first needs a little time and distance to think, either because the decision is not a simple one or because they do not want to show too much enthusiasm in any even in is still a positive gesture. The positioning of the body and feet. Yeah, as already mentioned, the direction in which the body is pointing, perhaps confirmed by the direction of the feet, is a good indication of where a person's attention is focused. In general, this part of the body will be aimed at the person with whom the person feels most empathy or interest. Nodding the head. If your conversation partner regularly nods her head without accompanying the motion of the other More negative body language. This means that she agrees with you. If she does not agree with you, she will more likely avoid eye contact or support her head with her hand. It can also be useful to not encouragingly, particularly at the start of the conversation, since this will stimulate the other person to talk more freely. The more you know, the easier it is to bridge the initial distance between you and maintain a good contact. Hand on the side of the face. If someone places his hand or index finger on his cheek or along the side of his face without actually supporting the head, this is another good sign, since it demonstrates interest and desire to listen to what you have to say. Supporting the head. If the hand of or one or more fingers are used to support the head, this signifies that your conversation partner is starting to get bored. You often see this gesture during long meetings or uninspired speeches. Even just supporting the chin with the thumb can be interpreted as negative and critical. If you do nothing to adjust your argument when you see this position, the situation will most likely soon turn to your disadvantage. Clearing up. It means ready to leave. If a person has not done this before, and if a moment occurs in the conversation which makes it possible, the sudden gathering of the paper or a quick rummaging in a briefcase may signal a desire to bring the conversation to a close. Rubbing the back of the neck. If someone rubs the back of her head or neck with her hand, this is a sign of frustration. It means that the conversation is not moving in the right direction and that she does not know how best to escape from the difficult situation in which she finds herself. Perhaps this frustration has its origin in a price that is too high, or perhaps the person has not been able to fulfill the commitments she made previously. If a colleague makes this gesture when you ask her about something she had promised to do, there is a good chance that the task will not be completed on time, that she feels guilty about it. The pistol. If someone brings together the index finger and point them in a forward direction, the symbolism is clear. The nonverbal aggression in this pistol-like gesture is plain for all to see. Rubbing hands together. We rub our hands together when a decision is made and we are getting ready to take action. It is as we want to warm up our hand before carrying out our intention accurately and energetically. However, the same gesture can also indicate happiness or even malicious pleasure, depending on the speed with which it is implemented. Tapping with your finger on the back or of your hand. We have already learned that tapping with your finger is a sign of nervousness, but if you tap with the finger of one hand on the back of your other hand, this signifies additionally that you are nervous about doing something or are waiting for something to occur. Pressing on your finger pads. When someone massages the inside of the palm of her other hand with her thumb, this suggests that she finds herself in a difficult situation. For example, when she does not want to commit herself further in a matter that has turned out differently from what she had expected. Hands relax over each other. If this gesture is not simply a habit of the person concerned, it may indicate his desire to distance himself from the situation or to withdraw from the current conversation. Although this is dependent on the timing, context, and speed with which the hands are folded over each other, in some circumstances it can also be more positive signal. For example, after a good meal, where the person wants to show that he feels comfortable and wishes to relax for a few moments. Both hands against the head. This gesture can mean that the person feels overwhelmed with new information. Equally, it can also be a sign of tiredness or reluctance. The correct interpretation will probably become clear through its combination with other gestures.